don't know if I'm gonna live through this whole growing my hair out process. It's driving me crazy. It's horrible when you have naturally curly hair and you're trying to grow it out and do the whole one length thing, which it has layers in it, because my idea was put some layers in the bottom so the curls don't stack on each other and look like a mushroom. And guess what? It still looks like a dang mushroom. What up, nerds? Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today on the channel, it is time for another weekly update. Let's start with the books that I finished. First up, I finished the collection by Darcy Coates that came out on July 30th called Ghost Camera. Spoiler alert, I gave that collection 5 stars. That's rare for me to read and love a collection enough when they're all written by the same author to give it 5 stars. I think that's happened less than a handful of times as far back as I can remember. For a 5-star rating on a collection by a single author, I have to love every story in that collection, and I did, which is so unusual because if you've been around for a while, I read Dead of Winter by her when it came out last year maybe. I really liked the premise, but I did not get on well with the writing style and just how she framed her narrative. So I was really hesitant about how I was gonna like Ghost Camera, but my goodness, that book was so good. Those stories, some of them gave me bad dreams, and I still kind of look funny if I hear a strange noise in the house. That collection is for all you paranormal horror lovers. Y'all need to get your hands on that one. I promise that one will not let you down. The next book that I finished is the audiobook for Quaint Creatures, The Magical and Mundane, A Sideways Tale by Andrew D. Meredith. This is a cozy fantasy tale with a little bit of a twist. Instead of a coffee shop or a bakery, Quaint Creatures is the home and veterinarian office of Norik Softstep. In addition to caring for and helping others care for magical creatures, Rick also finds himself in the middle of a few mysteries in the town of Bright Falls. It's just delightful, highly entertaining. I smiled the whole way through while I was reading this one. As always, Andrew D. Meredith writes the best characters, magic, world building. It's just the total package. The last book that I finished this week is Time's Orphan by Haley Reich Chow. This is labeled as the 3rd book in the YA fantasy series Odriel's Heirs, but it can be read as a standalone, and now that I finished it, I can absolutely back up that claim that it's a standalone. I never felt like I was missing something or picked it up in the middle of a story. It did feel like its own complete separate story, but it also was so stinking good that I can't wait to go back and read the other 2 books. All 3 of these books that I finished this week, I have already filmed the reviews. A couple of them have been edited and scheduled, and now that I'm thinking about it, all 3 of these books were 5-star reads for me. Holy smokes, no wonder I had such a good week. Moving into what I'm currently reading in the middle of, I started a reread for Ledge by Stacey McEwen because I'm going to be reading Chasm next, and then Valley, the 3rd book in that trilogy, comes out in September. After randomly being selected as a human sacrifice instead of death, Dawson finds herself on a quest to save her people from the icy ledge, name of the book, boom, 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 which is the 1st book in the Galatian trilogy. If you're someone who enjoys reading fantasy romance books that have high stakes and even higher rewards, then Ledge is definitely the book for you. I can't speak for the whole trilogy yet because, like I said, I've only read the 1st book. This time, though, I'm going with the audiobook, which is narrated by Sarah Slamani. She is absolutely wonderful, except when it comes to voicing characters that work in a certain tavern where a fair portion of our story takes place. The character who owns and operates the inn and one of the other patrons of the inn, Sarah thickens her accent for them and talks really quickly, and I can barely understand what they're saying. And before you say it, my audiobooks, I listen at 1x. On days I'm feeling particularly froggy, I might do 1.1x. So it's not that I have my listening speed too high. My ears just can't keep up with how quickly she has these characters talking and the accent that she gives them. But other than that, just absolutely loving her narration. I hope she does the next 2 books as well. I'm also in the midst of a new short story collection. This one is called Before the End by John Palladino. This collection features stories from the Tragedy of Sedaine series. John's recommendation is that you wait until after you've read the first book in the series, The Trials of Ashmount, to read this one. Now, this book has not been released yet. I'm reading an early advanced copy of it and just having the best time. The suck part is, this happens every time I pick up something by John, is whenever I start a new Tragedy of Sedaine book, I immediately want to stop and reread everything else in the series again. And that happened. I think I read a sentence and a half and I was like, man, I want to go read the other 2 books in this series again. It's equal parts aggravating and awesome. My last book that I have in my currently reading stack is Journey into the Cosmos by Jake Friedendahl. This is the first book in his series Tales from the Stranger Lands, and one that I wanted to read because it featured a mage named Raz. Where this story begins and how we meet Raz is he's on the run for murder, but he's desperate for a chance to redeem himself. He thinks that the best chance at this is to find this rune mage that's hiding out in the desert named Sigil for an opportunity of a lifetime. Raz did not put a whole lot of thought into how this whole redemption process would work because he has no idea what Sigil is going to have him do until he gets there, and it ends up it's going to be traveling to different multiverses and taking notes of how the different people there operate and use magic. I really enjoyed the premise. I like the magic. I like how Raz is still learning magic and he has this enchanted spell book that belonged to his mother, and as his ability grows, as his power grows, the enchantment will allow him to see new spells by his mother so he doesn't try to work magic that he's not ready for yet. It's a protection spell. Really love that. In his travels trying to locate Sigil, Raz has met the acquaintance of a few other travelers and they've decided, safety in numbers, they're going to travel together. And the author just sort of glosses over their backstories. There was an opportunity for them to share, and instead of taking the opportunity to provide depth to these characters, pared it down to a couple of sentences that just did not feel right. It felt clunky and drew me out of the story a little bit because I was going, why would we not take this opportunity to let us get to know these characters a little more? I'm still very early on in the story. It seems these characters are going to be sticking around, so hopefully the author will take the opportunity to give them more development as we go through. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes. So, what will I read next? What is up on the trusty TBR? Well, I'm going to go right into Chasm by Stacey McEwen as soon as I finish Ledge. Also on deck is Einstein in the Attic by Dana Dargos. This is a science fiction drama that's set against the backdrop of the war between God and science. This is one scientist's story, his search for meaning of the ultimate question, is there a God? I cannot wait to read this one. I've been so excited for it. I'm so glad that the time has finally arrived for me to read and review this one for y'all. So that one's next. And then, if I have time, I'm also going to be kicking off my reread of Wistful Ascending by JCM Byrne because I don't know if this is going to be possible, but I'm going to try. I know the 5th book in this series is coming out very soon. I'm going to try and reread the first book and then binge books 2, 3, 4, and if possible 5. I just got this hair up my tail. I want to read these books. I've been putting it off for too long. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it in time to get all of them read before book 5 comes out, but hey, we'll see what happens. What is life if you're not giving yourself challenges every now and again? As far as channel updates, if you missed it this week, I had my review go up for The Blood Dim Tide by Stephen Aryan on Tuesday. This is the 2nd book in the historical fantasy series, The Nightingale and the Falcon. And then on Thursday, my review for Unsub by Meg Gardner, which is the first book in the Unsub series. This is the first book in the serial killer series I've been talking about reading lately, where each book is inspired by a real life serial killer. Next week on the channel, on Tuesday, my review for Ghost Camera, the paranormal horror short story collection by Darcy Coates, is going to go go live, which Tuesday is when that collection will be available for purchase. On Thursday, my review for The Hunter's Lament by Stephen Panett, a fantasy series featuring a bounty hunter, that's going to go live. Moving over into what I have watched this week. Of course, I'm still working on House of the Dragon. That one has gotten a little bit too slow. I didn't mind the slow burn of the first 2 or 3, but now we're kind of getting a little bit excessive with it. And I'm like, okay, we need something big to happen. Though there was one really cute thing that happened, but I'm not going to talk about spoilers here. Just to say, still working on that one. Still working on The Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner. Man, I miss the days when they would release these shows all at once and I could just binge them. I really needed that to happen this last episode because where it ended, oh my gosh. Such a fantastic show. If you love thrillers, this one is definitely right up your alley. A couple of new things that I watched. Well, season 6 of Cobra Kai, the first 5 episodes came out. I was just gonna watch the first one and then next thing I knew, I watched all 5. This is the most I have enjoyed watching Cobra Kai since its first season. The last couple of seasons I really did not love, but this one has that first season feel to me. I cannot believe I have to wait until November to get the other half. I mean, I get what these streaming services are doing. They're making sure we're not signing up just to watch the entire show and then canceling our subscription. So they're doing the one show at a time, or they're doing season 1 and season 2. Netflix, you suck for doing that. I mean, I get it, but still, you suck. And then continuing my Halloween Horror Nights homework, I watched Insidious Chapter 3. That movie is the best one of the franchise so far. You have to watch the first 2 movies, of course, to get the gist of what's going on and just how clever it is. But it is the scariest one of the 3 so far. And so now we just have the last movie in the franchise to watch, and we'll have them all watch. Which I think the 4th movie is the one that the house for Halloween Horror Nights is based off of. I really don't see how they could make the 4th movie any scarier than the 3rd one. I almost don't want them to try. Like, my heart about came out of my chest a couple of times watching Chapter 3. I gotta do it, fam. I gotta watch it to make sure and get my homework done. I like being able to go in and see how well the Horror Nights people build the set to look like the movie, so that horror lovers, fans of the movie franchise can just put themselves in it. They did such a great job for Stranger Things 4. When you entered that house, you go in through Eddie's trailer, and that's what leads you into the Upside Down. It's so good. I cannot wait. Just a few more short days, and September will be here and the start of Halloween Horror Nights. The only time of year you're gonna find me spending more time outside the house than inside the house with my nose in a book. Speaking of books and out of the house, I joined an in-person book club. I am so excited. I found it completely by accident. I finally started spending a little time on Threads, and somehow the algorithm knows I live in Central Florida, and it put a whole bunch of bookworms that also live in my area in my feed. And somebody was asking about a book club, and somebody recommended this one. I checked it out and I was like, hey, these people are actually close enough in my area, I can participate. The book club is called the Spine Benders Society. Love the name. It's the Orlando chapter. I go to my first meeting at the end of August, and the book we voted on that we're going to be reading is The Measure by Nikki. Her last name starts with an E. Totally forgot what it was. I haven't read anything by this author, but funnily enough, this book was already on my want to read list, so I'm excited for that. Update on Mr. Milo Brown. He's doing good, y'all. We have one more week of drops before we go back to the eye doctor. I feel like the drops have worked and done what was intended, which was to reduce the inflammation of his eye so that his lens could either pop back into place or fall down into the bottom of his eye. It's not cloudy anymore, so we do think that lens moved somewhere. We're just hoping it moves somewhere where it's not going to move around and cause him pain, because if it's something that's going to keep causing him pain, that's where we'll have to remove his eye, because we don't want that baby walking around hurting. So we have another week or so before we find out what's going to happen there. Speaking of, thank y'all so much for the outpouring of love for my little puppy. I just really appreciate that so much. This pup has been a part of my life for so long. I cannot imagine. Listen, I know know he's not gonna live forever. That doesn't mean I'm gonna quit wanting him to. I'll definitely keep y'all updated on his progress and what the outcome is gonna be. But as far as everything else, that's it. That's all I got. That's my week, y'all. The books that I finished this week really set the bar high. We'll have to wait until next week to find out if my current reads are gonna be able to meet that same level. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button on your way out today. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday.